Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. I hope you've missed me. I've been gone on a wonderful vacation to Ireland, and so I'm coming back with a great potato recipe for you because they have all kinds of potatoes there with pretty much every meal in Ireland. So I thought it would be very fitting as my first recipe post-vacation to do a potato recipe for you, and we're going to be making a roasted red potato and Langostino chowder. Langostino are small shellfish. They're related to lobsters, and we're going to be using some Langostino tails in them. They are very reminiscent of lobster, have a great tender kind of buttery taste to them, and they're absolutely delicious in this chowder. But we're going to get started with some red potatoes. I have 1.5 pounds of red potatoes, red skinned potatoes here. I have my oven preheating to 450. And what I want to do, I'm going to leave the skin on these because they're very papery thin, so it doesn't add a lot to the dish. It just adds a little burst of color in the finished dish. And what I want to do is cut up each of these potatoes into about 1-inch chunks. Once I have them cut up, I'm going to go ahead and throw them in my mixing bowl for my next step. Once I have all of my potatoes cubed up, my next step is I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of olive oil, pour that right in there, and then just take a pinch of some coarse sea salt, sprinkle that over the top, and that's it. Just toss them up. You can see I have my pan prepared here. I've just sprayed it with some nonstick olive oil cooking spray just to make sure that these potatoes don't stick to the pan when they're cooking. Again, my oven is preheated to 450. I'm going to lay these out on the pan in a single layer, and then just pop them in my oven. Bake them for a total of 20 minutes, but I'd like to give them a good stir right in the middle of that, so about 10 minutes on each side. So I'll see you back here in just a little bit. My potatoes have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to start cooking the rest of the chowder here, and that's going to start with my soup pan, which I'm going to heat over medium heat. Spray it with just a little bit of olive oil cooking spray. And then I have 3 stalks of celery here. I'm going to trim off the bottoms and the leafy tops. Set those aside. And then just take each stalk of celery, slice it in half lengthwise, just like that. And then take all those pieces and just slice them up or chop them up. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my pan. And then next, I have 1 whole onion. And I like to use a sweet onion for this. Just adds a little bit of additional flavor to it. So same thing, we're just going to dice up this onion. And once that's cut up, we'll go ahead and add that right to our pot. And then last thing I'm going to add for right now is 1 red bell pepper. And you've seen me do this before. I like to just cut it right down the cheeks here, just like that. And that helps make sure that all my seeds stay in there instead of in my pepper. and gives me much less cleanup, so I can go straight to cutting those. So once I have that cut into pieces, I just dice it up, and we're going to add that right into the pot. Once I have all my pieces in there, I'm going to go ahead and cook that until the onions are transparent. Now that I have my vegetables in here, again, I'm going to cook these until the onions are transparent, but let's go ahead and add in some seasoning. So first thing is a pinch of coarse sea salt, and then I have about 1.5 teaspoons of fresh thyme leaves. I've already stripped them off the stems, and I'm going to put them in whole. And that means that my potatoes are ready. So what I'm going to do now is just pull them out and let them cool while I get the rest of this going. The onions are just about cooked, so now I'm going to show you my secret to making this chowder really nice and thick and creamy without adding any cream whatsoever. So that's going to involve half of these potatoes that we've roasted up. They're this lovely golden brown now. I'm going to take half of them and throw them in my blender. I'm using my blender instead of a food processor because it's a little more watertight than my food processor. So I'm just going to take roughly about half of them, put them in there, and I have 4 cups of a homemade salt-free chicken broth, and very easy to do yourself. I actually have tips for making your own broths in my Soups and Stews book, which is available on my website. I'm just going to add about 1 cup of it for right now to give it some liquid to puree with, and then for a little extra dose of creaminess, this will also add a little protein to the dish. I'm going to add 1/4 cup of non-fat plain Greek yogurt. Then all that's left to do is to puree this up until it's nice and creamy and smooth. Perfect. So now that I have that done, I'm just going to go ahead and pour that in my pan over those vegetables that we've been sauteing. And I love doing this because I get those nice flecks, kind of brown flecks, into the broth that has from those roasted potatoes. Then I just add the rest of that broth right in there. Let's go ahead and add the rest of those potatoes. And then I have 1 cup of corn, and I actually bought corn that has already been roasted. It's labeled as roasted corn. It's frozen, and I'm just going to use 1 cup of those kernels. Add that right in there. Then I have 1/2 pound of Langostino tails. Again, these are little shellfish. They're related to the lobster, very similar taste to the lobster. These are already cooked. I've defrosted them, and I'm just going to throw them in there. Perfect. For a finishing touch, let's get a bay leaf right here. And I'm just going to add 1 bay leaf, submerge that in there, give it a good stir. And now what I'm going to do is cover this. I'm going to reduce it to a simmer, and I'm going to let it cook for about 1/2 hour until it's nice and warmed through and very delicious. And our soup is all done cooking, so all there's left to do is to go ahead and serve this up. Now this recipe will serve 4 people. There's a nice heaping bowl of it. Roasted red potato and Langostino chowder. Absolutely delicious, low fat, and healthy. I hope that you'll give this a try, and I'll see you next time in my kitchen.